bird called once and went quiet, and inside that armored, decorated, scarred, terrified chest, something shifted. Naaman pulled the reins. The procession slowed, stopped, then turned around. Nobody spoke on the ride to the Jordan. When Naaman saw the river, he almost turned back a second time. The Jordan was not what the rivers of Damascus were. It was not wide and silver, powerful and self-important. It was narrow, brown at the edges, tangled with reeds along the banks. The kind of water a Syrian general wouldn't water his horses in on an ordinary afternoon. He stared at it for a long moment from the bank. Then he climbed down from his horse. He removed his outer cloak, then his armor, piece by piece, each piece meeting the ground, with a dull weight that felt heavier than metal. Until Naaman, the commander of Syria, no longer existed on that riverbank. Until there was only a man, frightened in a way no enemy had ever managed to make him frightened. Standing in the afternoon light, in a foreign land next to a river that wasn't worthy of him. Just flesh, just disease, just a body running out of time. He waded in. The water was cold, brown. He looked back once at his soldiers, standing perfectly still on the bank, not one of them looking away, all of them holding a breath they didn't realize they were holding. He went under. One. He came back up, looked at his arm immediately, the way a man looks who already knows what he is hoping for and is terrified of being disappointed. The spots were exactly where they had always been. He steadied himself, went under. 2, he came up, looked, nothing. 3, nothing. 4, nothing. 5. His soldiers on the bank had not moved, had barely breathed. 6. Naaman rose from the water, stood there with the cold river streaming off his face, and then looked at his arm for a long moment. 6 times, 6 acts of obedience in a river that wasn't worthy of him, following instructions delivered by a servant through a closed door in a country he had spent his whole life dismissing. And nothing. Still nothing. The disease sitting exactly where it had been that morning, unmoved, unimpressed. Every instinct screamed at him to get out. He had tried 6 times. No man could say he hadn't made the effort. He could climb out now with his dignity intact, ride back to Damascus, and at least say he had done what was asked of him. But his feet stayed in the mud. He thought about the morning ritual, the dark room, the linen, the counting. He thought about what his life looked like if he climbed out of this river right now and rode home exactly as he had arrived. He closed his eyes, drew one slow breath, and went under one final time. 7. When Naaman rose from the Jordan River, the world was completely quiet. He looked at his arm, and he could not breathe. The spots were gone. Not reduced, not partially faded in a way that required optimistic interpretation. Gone. Every last one. His skin, this skin that had been rotting, that had been stripping away everything he had spent 30 years building, was new, smooth, unmarked. He stood in the middle of that muddy, narrow, thoroughly unimpressive river and felt the full weight of everything he had been carrying alone for months lift off his body in a single moment. And Naaman, commander of Syria, decorated soldier, the man who had made kings nervous and cities tremble, broke completely open, not quietly, not with the restrained dignity of a man maintaining composure. He wept, the way a man weeps when he's held something unbearable in silence, for so long that the moment it is finally gone, his body simply doesn't know what else to do with itself. Deep, shaking, uncontrollable, everything he had refused to show anyone. The fear, the shame, the long private grief of watching himself disappear. All of it came out of him at once in the brown water of the Jordan River on an ordinary afternoon. His soldiers on the bank looked away, not from embarrassment, from reverence. He rode back to Elisha's house. This time the prophet came outside, and Naaman, the man who had arrived days ago with gold piled on chariots and the full force of his own importance, the man who had nearly thrown his miracle away in pride, stood before Elisha and bowed, slowly, completely, without hesitation. When he raised his head, his eyes were still wet, and his voice carried nothing in it except the bare, undecorated truth. "Now I know," he said, "there is no God in all the earth, except in Israel."